to order.
Okay. Can I have the open public meetings statement?
On Wednesday, January 12, 2022, notice of this meeting was mailed to the press and the Current of Egg Harbor Township. Notice was also delivered that day to the Egg Harbor Township clerk and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bongiorno?
Here.
Okay. Mrs. Loggy, if you can release your mic. So, no problem. Mr. Della Barca is absent. Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Here.
Ms. Hyman?
Here.
Mr. Ireland?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mr. Seppi?
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan? And Mrs. Salagi.
Here. Okay. Salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, Dr. Grigio, you have a report for us? Yes.
Okay, good evening. Oops. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday night meeting where we're going to be presenting the 22-23 budget. And as you all know, we have been budgeting. We've been budgeting over the last few months, and our budget process began back in October with submissions from our administration that we reviewed. We had presentations, we had supervisors come in here and directors present to the Board of Education and the public their needs and wants. Administration met with principals, discussed the same thing, what are the needs and wants. These folks created zero-based budgets that they presented to us. Then we awaited the state aid process, and the governor delayed that a week or so, but on March 10th, we received our state aid funding number of $10 million. Yay us! That sounds wonderful. We were very excited. However, 3 days later, Mr. Santilli, Ms. Moss, and I spent 6.5 hours in central office on a Saturday cutting $3 million so we could present a balanced budget to you this evening. We are presenting a balanced budget. Very, very proud of that, and you will see where the $10 million in state aid is applied. You'll also see where grant money is used to get us to this place and get us the things that we need. A balanced budget that's going to include the needed resources for our students as well as good news for taxpayers. This balanced budget that will be presented has a monetary figure, and it's the total number that will represent our operating budget, all right, for next year. And that budget, or this budget that's going to be presented, is wrapped around Board of Education goals as well as student learning goals, where we are all focusing on improving student achievement, the social emotional issues in our schools, in all schools at this day and time, literacy for all, improved climate and culture in our schools with the focus on good character and equity, as well as the expansion of community partnerships, and also focus on the end of the strategic plan, something that we will be getting into in a month or so to create a new one. The total budget number that you will see tonight and hopefully approve will be sent to the county office on March 24th. That is not only us, but that's all school districts are doing this process as well. I just want you to take note that this number that will be presented or will be sent to the county office cannot be increased. However, over the next couple of weeks when we have budget meetings, that number can be decreased. So we'll have time to look at that. So again, tonight you are voting on a number to be presented to the county office. So I ask you to sit back and listen. Ms. Anaya will engage you in approximately a 90-minute presentation on the 22-23 budget. Please know that a lot of time, and I will add blood, sweat, and tears went into this process. I'm very proud of the work that Ms. Anaya has done and the efforts that she put forth to get us to this point, to be able to stand here and say we are presenting to you a balanced budget. So, Board of Education members, this will be long, and we're going to get through it, but I ask that you get a pen and paper out and write down questions as we go through this. And at the end, we'll address those questions. And who knows, perhaps along the way, those questions will get answered. Okay, so, but we want to get through this, but Ms. Anaya is going to present the initial pillars of the budgeting process. Okay, so the initial pillars, because you're wondering, where's my binder, where's my binder? Let's get through the initial pillars of the budgeting process, and then we'll get to a point in the presentation where you will receive your binder, and that's a whole nother exercise that we're going to take you through. Okay, so again, so let's sit back. Ms. Anaya, you have the floor. Your presentation, I know, is thorough. It's been reviewed. And Board of Education, get ready to take notes and be ready for your questions at the end. Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio, and thank you to the board members and the few community members who came today. This is going to be long, as Dr. Gruccio said, but we're going to go slow. We're going to make sure everybody understands, and at the end, we'll definitely answer any questions that aren't answered just naturally throughout the slideshow, okay? So I'm going to do things a little backwards this year. Thanks at the end has always been a tradition, but this year we could not have gotten here, and it's a lot of work by everybody listed here. We have the Board of Ed who's going to pay attention today, and bless me with your attention. My business office staff who, once again, slaves really hard today, always, but really today, it's like the day they know, get sitters. We're going to be here for the long haul to prepare for these packets. Central Office Administration, as Dr. Gruccio said, who came in on a Saturday after blood, sweat, and tears were shed. Central Administration, so all the directors, building principals, supervisors, and of course our community that helps steer the ship with our board goals, our district goals, and strategic planning, as Dr. Gruccio said. So to prepare, we have pieces of this budget today that are going to all come together. Specifically, we're going to talk about some preschool operation plans that you already heard about, as well as the ESSER grant you already heard about. The curricular supervisors all presented how they're going to roll out their next year. State of the schools. Dr. Gruccio did a thorough presentation in February to go over where we are, a pulse of today, and we gave a quick facilities update. Today, we're presenting the balanced budget for next year. So to help build the budget, because we are a public school, not a private business or company, the revenue comes from multiple sources: our local sources, our state, and our federal sources. So the local tax levy is a piece of that puzzle, and that's the tax assessed to the community. That's going to help us fund our general budget, which is Fund 10. That's our operating daily operations of schools, as well as our debt service. And our debt service is specific to building schools and construction approved. The last one we did was back in 04 through 08. The state sources. The state funds us through state aid, which we're going to talk about today, and through some grants. That state aid helps us with our general fund, our day-to-day operating fund, the special revenue fund, which are grants, not promised, not necessarily renewed year to year, as well as debt service, which we talked about building those schools. The state actually gave money for that. Federal government, general revenue, our operating budget, the specific slice of federal money there has to do with our SEMI, which is Medicaid reimbursement services, and also the federal government helps us with our grants, our entitlement grants, as well as some grants that just came out during this COVID time. Local revenue, that's our local taxpayers, our local use of facilities, our solar credits. We sell our solar panel credits. We gain interest on our bank accounts, as well as student activity funds. That's going to do our daily operating budget, as well as some things we do in Fund 20, which is a special revenue stuff. So if a student activity were to raise money for a purpose, it goes through Fund 20. Then there's savings, because with a huge budget like we have, we do our very best during this process to line up what our expected expenses are and how they're going to be paid for with revenue. Sometimes more revenue comes than expected. Sometimes we don't spend as much because the prices go down from the time we budget to the time we purchase. The savings goes into a pot. The pot is a reserve for other purposes, such as capital improvements, or gets applied to the following year's budget. So that's the surplus. Surplus means savings, if you think of it that way. Okay. So those are all the different ways we can get money to help operate our schools. We're using color codes to try to help you follow along because of the grants this year and last year. There's a lot of things that are tied together, so we're going to kind of use colors to say 10 is green. Green means go. Green is every day. Green is our operating budget, day-to-day schools. Blue is a fantastic calming color. It's bright sometimes. That's our special stuff. That's going to be grants. That's going to be local grants, whether it's Atlanticare giving us money or this ESSER money. Anything special goes in that blue color. And Fund 40 is our debt service. I wanted to put it red just because it's old stuff. It's old stuff, but we have to pay back. It's for building the schools that we built, and we have to pay back the bonds that we took out. And I left Fund 30 neutral. Because we haven't built anything in so long, with all that money raised in the pink bucket, there's nothing to pay back at this point, so it's just neutral. It's there, it exists, but there's nothing to talk about at budget time because we're not building anything at this point. Okay? Now, green means go. Oh, I want to give an example, actually. This is the easiest one. That bright pink is debt service. Just like your house, just like your car, anything that has principal and interest, the interest goes down every year. So therefore, our payments are decreased every year. So over the years, I just had a couple-year comparison. The state funds a portion, and our local tax levy, raised by taxes, pays a portion. It goes down every year because the interest goes down every year. So that's the comparative for that bucket or that fund of Fund 40 for buildings we already built. So there's $8 million in this budget specifically to pay down buildings we've already built. All right? Now, green means go. This one's fun. Now, in Fund 10, the general operating day-to-day, how we run our schools, there's different pieces of that come through. So we're going to use the buckets in this one. There's state aid, which we're going to talk about. There's the local tax levy, which we're going to talk about. The surplus, that's the savings. Remember the savings account at the end of money not spent? And then other, which is the interest, the solar credits, and such. With the categories being state aid is orange, our local levy is blue. Gray is those other categories, surplus and other. God bless you. So since the state aid has been increasing year after year, isn't this a pretty image? The state is funding a bigger piece of our pie. The local levy is taking a smaller portion, taking a back seat. This is the goal. The state is supposed to fund us. So it should actually be 2016-17's exact opposite picture is what it should look like. And we're going to get there. I have faith in our lawmakers of the state of New Jersey. History of state aid. 2023 is year 6 already, year 6 of 7. A2S2 was a bill that passed to a law that changed the funding formula from being stagnant. It had been frozen for years. We were stuck at $40 million of state aid through huge growth, huge changes in our district. The state did not give us a penny more. But since the 17 year, as you can see, we've gotten steady increases over the years, including this year. Next year should be another increase, and maybe they'll redo the formula again. However, because the formula takes into consideration the number of students in your schools, the demographic in your area, how many citizens in this area, the average income of this area, and the fact that Egg Harbor Township, as you see new construction going up, I don't see us losing money if everything goes well in the next few years. So we should continue to get funded by the state to provide education. So the history of state aid is in there. Then there's a local levy. We have increased annually for over 20 years. Before cap, when now the cap is like, oh, you can't raise more than 2%, that was put in, which restricted us from growth because we were growing double digits. The state aid isn't helping us. We had to increase taxes. So the history of constantly increasing taxes for 20 years, last year we came in flat. The board passed a budget without raising taxes. This year, the budget we're going to be discussing has a decrease of about 2.3% of the levy, which translates to $1.8 million. And as we talked about debt service, that pink screen, it decreases annually. Cost of the penny is always an interesting point. How much is a penny worth in Egg Harbor Township? For those of you who follow, the price of the penny did go up, so our value of our dollar is worth more, which that means our properties have gained value, and or there's more to assess. I think the new homes have given us more to assess. Businesses moving in have given us more to assess. I don't want to lose you there. I just want to say, we're going in the right direction as a township. We're going in the right direction as a board. Cost of the penny is $407,000 this year. What does that mean to the local school levy? If we do nothing, because last year was flat, we run on a July through June schedule. Taxes are assessed in a calendar year. So because of the last year being flat, we have a little bit of a decrease this year already. And that's about 1.5 cents. Without doing anything if we came in flat. However, we didn't come in flat. We didn't even decrease 1%. We went down 2.8% to present this budget tonight. That translates to almost 3.8 cents, 3.76 cents. What does that mean for the average bear? So an average taxpayer having a $200,000 home, $75 decrease into your bill for 2022. This doesn't seem like a lot. It's a huge chunk of our budget, $1.8 million. When Dr. Gruccio spoke about coming in on Saturday to cut $3 million, it was because we had to present something to show something back to our taxpayers who have been overburdened with still being able to provide what we need in this district. It was not easy to get there. So this is a very significant move. That column of reduced budget, our budget went down 1.8, but that's to basically give some relief to our taxpayers of that $75 for the year. That's what this budget presents. Then you have the local revenue, which is other, those credits I talked about, use of facilities, rentals, that sort of thing, tuition from other schools. Transient kids come here, they have to pay for them to come get educated. Surplus. So the law changed last year. We've only been able to hold our huge budget. They said you can't have more in your savings account than 2% of your budget. That's our what if account. Then COVID hit, and the state realized maybe we should let you keep a little bit more than 2%, just in case, to help balance a bad year. So they allowed us to put 4% away. Conservatively, because I budget with panic, we are taking some of that out and not keeping the full 4% in, because I do believe we should be offsetting this budget with some savings from prior year to keep it kind of fiscally stable. So we're budgeting about $4 million to offset. Last year was about, with prior years have been about 3. So we're putting a little bit more in, and we'll see how this works out with post-COVID life and see if we can do more later, okay? So that's applying additional savings for the future budget. So in English, you'll get this in your binder, this little sheet. It starts with 2021, it has 2022, and it has 2023. The current budget is in bold. And the reason we gave 3 years, and throughout this presentation, you're gonna see a 2-year comparative, is because last year, because of all the savings from that first year of COVID, we put $10 million into our capital projects. And without holding Capital Reserves 101 and holding you hostage for that lesson, I figure it's better to show 2 years, because that impact of a huge jump in 1 year, and then a huge, not so big jump the next year, it would be difficult to discuss, but I wanted to show you. And if you're willing to discuss it, we can. If you want to have that question, we can go into it. But basically to say, over 2 years, yes, we did receive $20 million in additional state aid. $20 million. We are giving back to taxpayers $1.8 million. We've added some surplus, about $1 million more than we usually do. That shakes out to be $19 million of new money over 2 years. And I'm sure you're looking at it like, wow, it's a windfall, right? We're going to show you exactly where that went. Where did all that money go? This is selected lines of what you're going to have in your binder. Your binder does a full comparative year to year of all of the lines. But these are lines we wanted to kind of highlight and discuss. Where this $20 million went. Regular instruction, what that means, regular education, it was general education, instructional lines. That's your gen ed teachers, your supplies, your textbooks, things that just the teacher needs in the classroom to teach. The resources needed. Special education specific to instruction, same thing except for the special ed population. That is the staff, the supplies, and the resources needed for the special education programs in classroom. Basic skills instruction. This is where we put the interventionists. There are several that were in last year's budget, There's some we're going to talk about in this year's budget, and that's really to try to help our kids Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 to acknowledge all areas, lift up the ones who need it, enhance the ones who kind of already still have it, but be able to intervene and meet the kids where they are to get them where we need them to go. Huge increase there. What was that? You good? Explaining. Thank you. I've learned a lot from my team. I am a numbers person, but I've learned a lot about the education side. Let me tell you what. Athletics and instruction. So resources, we've had some new sports come through, new clubs and activities. We were able to take away the pay to play. We've done a lot of great things in that area as well. Tuition. This looks deceiving, and it's going to be in your binder, but I wanted to explain why it looks like we went down in out-of-district tuition by almost $1.3 million. How is that even possible with all of the demands we have? ESSER. We've offset it with ESSER, about $1.5 million. So the local budget, the green, local, every day, pushing it through, is a decrease of the local taxpayer in that regard, but picked up by the federal government. And the reason we did that was to get those interventions, get the mental health supports, get all of the things we needed in our local budget. Guidance, speaking of mental supports, there's that. Child study team, resources needed for that. Improving instructional services. That looks like another negative. How can we be decreasing supporting the instruction? We're not. A lot of it was picked up by ESSER, by Title II. For those of you who want to go back, it was the November agenda where we talked about the switch that you're seeing now happen.
I want to add that Chandra was complimented by not only the auditors, but the county for the work that she did in making those switches and being able to reallocate money, allocate money, so we can benefit from that. So thank you.
I try my best. Thank you. Educational media and libraries. So that's, yes, our libraries in our schools, as well as we're going to call it educational media, which is, think of audio visual supports, to be able to have the technology needed that we needed to improve. Instructional staff training. This is specific PD. So this stayed, only looks like it went up 115. When I tell you we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars between ESSER and Title, it's not that. It looks like a little bit, but it's really a lot more than that. General administration. So that is, we'll call it the backbone, behind the scenes, our administration to be able to do what we need to do to support these kids. Operations and maintenance. This is facilities and security, utilities, solar, anything related to building operations and maintenance. Transportation, we're going to talk about in a little bit. Transportation went up a lot, and we're going to talk about why. Health benefits also went up, and we're going to talk about why. And the capital improvements, like I talked about,
Okay. Can
to
I
your
ask
comparison.
a question now, or should we wait?
I'd ask that you wait because I have more to come with all of the things I just said.
I'm very interested in the capital reserve, but okay, I'll wait.
Okay, thank you for that. So that's where, when you say 20 million, just like that. Let's talk about a little bit more of each area. So we talk about general education in the classroom, new personnel, we're going to talk about the next slide. The resources to support the classroom instruction, technology and software, resource implementation, professional development, programs and supports through MTSS. Now those last two are on another slide, but it just shows what we've put into that general ed area. Newly budgeted positions, this is over, everything's a 2-year review because, like I said, to wrap your heads around, it's 20 million of new money in 2 years. Where did it all go? It is a 2-year review to refresh of where we are today as well as where we are going next year. So positions in general education, a computer science teacher at the high school, Spanish teacher in the middle schools. And in this proposal, we're making a part-time PE teacher, a full-time PE teacher. Personnel-wise, in the general education setting, we pretty much have been stable with enrollment and all, so there wasn't much adjustments there for personnel. You're going to see them in other support areas. However, the expenses and the resources, for years, we have nickeled and dimed these curricular areas with their supplies and what they can have to resource. We said find something for free for so long, and we were able to finally get in a schedule of rotation of implementing resources for specific areas, phasing in K-12. And they're listed here for you to reference at your leisure. That's really where most of it went. Then special ed. We talked about some special ed personnel, supports for IEP, tuition we talked about briefly, as well as our summer programs. New personnel in special ed world. We've had MD teachers, resource room teachers, preschool disabled, physical therapists. This year, more MD teachers, pull-out resources, and preschool disabled. Out-of-district tuition, I wanted to just show a little bit more about that deceiving slide. We're up to over $3 million in out-of-district placements. And this is not a knock to our special ed department. This is specific to meeting the kids' needs, and sometimes it's just not here. They're better fit somewhere else, and we understand that. But that tuition can be more costly, and our population is such that we have to send some out of district. So the increase of cost, I'm glad ESSER came through to help offset some of those. But in 2024, when ESSER is no more, we're really going to have to absorb that locally. So multi-tiered systems of support. Again, this is the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 conversation Levy preaches about. I've learned a lot from her. New personnel, resources to support the classrooms, summer school and after-school programming, again, professional learning, software, and technology. To support, we've had added interventionists for tier 1 and tier 2 in those listed schools there, tier 3 teachers, advanced placement for gifted and talented in math, as well as a supervisor for literacy instruction. You want to say literacy for all. We're trying so hard, and we finally have somebody to lead the charge. Not that it wasn't being led before, it's just gotten so voluminous. The board did approve an additional person to help us get there, which just started. Did she even start yet? April 1st. Next year's proposed budget has more interventions and more enrichment teachers for that tier 1, tier 2. Because we do recognize it's not necessarily only finding them and lifting up, but it's also to reinforce those who are already there. We can't forget the whole population. Social emotional personnel and resources. Again, new personnel, classroom instruction, software technology, same concept. This year we did more stipend work to try to get some programs in place and figure out what we're trying to do and how we can best do it. In this budget, we are proposing 5 positions in mental health in the different schools listed, as well as sustaining those contacts and the stipends for the one-to-one interactions that we built with the kids. Transportation. Why did transportation go up so much? Several vacancies. I still need 15 drivers. We still need 15 drivers. We still need bus aides because preschool is only going to expand. So this is my announcement for that. We're still looking. Changes to the bus services. So this coming budget, you're going to see ACIT and non-public schools will no longer be transported by our buses. I know this is a big deal. We are going to get you there. We're going to get you there with a contractor because we are going to take care of our students that need transportation to our buildings. It's our priority for this budget. More special education runs in-house. That has also been discussed for years. We've been phasing it in. It has not gone away. We are just doing more every year. And parent contracts. We were able to roll out a lot of parent contracts this year, looking to do more next year, specific to students that are qualified. Over the last 2 years, with 20 new buses, and you're thinking, what? So buses last 10, 12 years. What happened in 09? 07, 09 in there. We bought 40 and 50 buses a year. So we've been doing 8 to 10 a year since, not Dr. Phipp, that's Janice. Skip Phipp, Mr. Phipp, presented that schedule to those board members who have been here long enough to see the schedule of replacements, and we've been very in tune with making sure we replace those to make sure with those who fall out of service, we have buses to continue to transport. Biggest expenses, onboarding. We are still onboarding. If you want to be a driver, we'll put you through the school, through the training, we'll reimburse you any expenses. We are looking for drivers, and we are very serious about it. We've done some promotions internally, trying to do some dual roles, those who have other work in the district but can work maybe in the morning or work in the afternoon. Speak to your supervisor or call 1710. We'll see if we can get you some morning runs or afternoon runs. We've increased the pay for retention. We're trying to hold on to them with everything we have, our drivers. We appreciate the hard work that they have had, are still doing. So the significant increases in salaries. It went from $15 an hour to $17 an hour, and this budget does propose $20 an hour. It seems like a lot when you have a retail store or even Wawa paying much more for much easier work. We're trying to stay competitive so that they don't leave us. We need to keep on everyone we have. Gas and diesel. I don't think I need to explain to anybody who has a vehicle right now. We have to adjust for next year to plan accordingly. Okay. Security. Security, facilities, and operations is in the same group. We now have more coverage for back-to-school nights and board meetings, etc. We have added 11 new part-time staff over the last 2 years to cover different areas. We've implemented Lobby Guard, which is like a screener. When you come in, they screen you by your driver identification. The uniforms, we've had some turnover. We've had to keep, uniforms, keep up with them, the little shirts that they get. And also the technology to comply with Alyssa's law has been implemented. Technology plan. Mr. Erdebay went through the phase-in. We are right on target. This budget reflects the same. It's actually in the ESSER budget, not in the local budget, to help offset costs. What we are doing, the replacement plan we spoke about, where middle schoolers on up have one-to-one and get to take home, and the older models get pushed down and have the ratios for the lower grades. Projector systems, we did a huge replacement this year of all the projectors. There's a few stragglers left in this budget to either add to a new room that didn't have one already, or considerations like that. And of course, our infrastructure. We have to fix our backbones to make sure we can have all this technology working all the time. And facilities. So facilities, just a quick recap of the buildings and the ages. Yep, newest addition was the high school in 2012. Think of your homes, what's good for 10 years. This slideshow will also be public. If you don't want to, you can take pictures, absolutely. Take notes, but I want to make you just relax, listen, because it'll be presented on the website. Okay. So our buildings are older. They need a lot of TLC. This budget does have the fixed costs for our budget. It includes some lease purchase of some replacement items. Capital projects are identified. Additional staff to support our grounds and maintenance department over the last 2 years. Utilities have increased over the last 2 years, as well as solar expenses. Our solar panels are getting older. And we used to have just a maintenance agreement, come out, tighten everything up at the beginning of the year. Now they're finding things, they have to replace this and that. Just got a $4,700 bill today for replacement of an inverter. So they're getting older. We gotta start maintaining them better. Then benefits. So benefits are awkward. Benefits, we are self-funded. We pay for when you go to the doctors. So with that, we have rates that are set by our brokers and our actuaries that they hire to come up with what our rates are going to be. We became self-funded in 1920. We had a very slight increase for 21, and we've had stable benefits costs since then, including this coming proposed budget. Are we okay over there? I just want to make sure. Are you okay? Okay, just making sure there's nothing, I could slow down. I want to make sure I wasn't going too fast. No problem, all right. So this budget does reflect steady savings per person cost. It does have a slight decrease that was identified by our brokers. Because of the hard work of our brokers, because we are self-funded, when Chapter 44 was implemented, the state said, you saved money. Give it back to your taxpayers. And it was over $100,000 that is in this budget that should have been going back to the taxpayers, which would have anyway, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So then I said to the state, I said, well, did I really save any money, or just did the employee contribution get higher because everybody got a raise? You pay a portion of your check. So our cost to the board, in one area, those who are in Chapter 78, 80% of our population, their pay contribution went up. So it helped offset the bills, which are great. Then I have Chapter 44, which is costing us an arm and a leg because I'm getting, over almost $5,000 for an average employee from Chapter 78. This Chapter 44 only gets $2,400 from that employee, but it's the same cost to the Board of Education. So if a benefit for a family is $30,000, I have some employees who are newer and contributing $2,400, $2,500, and then we have some who are employing $5,000. So the savings that they're saying we're seeing are because more people 80% is contributing a little bit more, but Chapter 44 on its own for my 200 plus who are in that bucket, They're costing us, and they're costing us $250,000 the first year, estimated to be $3 million this year. Next year's budget does stay flat, because although I think it'll also be more of a cost to us, because of the savings with our brokers, they're keeping the premiums steady for us. So had it not been for Chapter 44, we could have gotten a reduction. So benefits for this year, in summation, are flat, with a slight $500,000 decrease, so maybe a little bit of a smidge less as of right now. We are not done speaking with our brokers. It is an ongoing conversation through June 30th to renew. And also, we've been talked about, we've been in the state plan, we've been out of the state plan. That's also not off the table. It is really never off the table. We do talk about that as well, and that's a January switch. So every January and July, I'm basically constantly looking with the brokers of what's best for our district. So it's not done yet, but this budget does propose a steady number. So this is a 2-year look back, since that's what we're kind of wrapping our heads around on these other slides. These are the kinds of benefits and why it went up so much, if you will. FICA. FICA is when you have employees, you have to pay, just like your check has federal taxes and Medicare taxes and all, we have to pay a match of 7.65% for anybody who's not certified. If you're a certified staff, the state pays that bill. But we have to pay that bill if you're not certified, which we have. Custodians, secretaries, paras, we have plenty in the district. Oh, and they get a raise every year, so our portion goes up every year, which is good. DCRP, part-time people don't qualify for PERS or TPAF, which are 2 pension types, certified, not certified. DCRP is for part-timers. 3% we have to pay, and that goes up every year. PERS, people who are not certified that do work full-time, the state comes knocking every year and says, pay your share of their pension, please. Thank you very much. And that bill goes up every year. Dental, prescription, and health. I put stars. The reason why there's an increase are because of all that staff I just talked about. Remember those other slides? It's new lives, or in this case, I put staff. I did change the word. I used to say lives. New staff. So the increase isn't that our premiums are going up. The increase is truly because we have new people, okay? That's the green. Everyday local budget. Now we're gonna go special blue. Special, special, special. It's a lot on one slide. We're just gonna go slow. Different sources for the special money. Local, state, and federal. Local money for specials. Student activity funds. We have, I can't tell you how many, over 100 between middle school and high school, between K-12, hundreds of them. They raise money that has to be spent back on the student. So they can have a fundraiser, and it could say, because we want to have a pizza party for the 3rd grade. We have parents clubs for field trips and those sorts of things. That does not run through our books. But this is the students raising money for student activities. Local grants. Atlantic Care is so gracious. They always find AEDs or something to give us, or they give us some money to do gardens, healthy eating, that sort of thing. Sustainable New Jersey does the same. That's a local, maybe South Jersey Gas Industries, they'll give us some money with a purpose. Everything in Fund 20 has a purpose. It doesn't just go there to sit. It goes there with a purpose to spend. It's called restricted funds. Into the state. State gives us preschool. Huge. We're going to talk about that later. They give us non-public money. So church and state, I'll never understand, because the state of New Jersey says, Ms. Anaya, you're fiscally responsible, you're qualified, you have the certification, make sure the non-publics are spending right. So we're going to give you the money, and you're going to help them with all their purchases. That's $517,000 we have to manage in our district for non-public spending, security, technology, nursing, special ed services. Federal money, ESSA, AKA NCLB, AKA Title 1, 2, 3, 4. It's in changing names, but ESSA is a current name. The allocation of this entitlement is not out. The state says you must budget 85%, so that's what we assumed. Made an 85% assumption. That's going to cover your basic skills teachers at Davenport and Miller specifically, ELL services and teachers, as well as professional development. IDEA is also federal funds specific to special ed needs. We cover our extended school year as well as our out-of-district tuition. There is an ARP IDEA also involved, which is listed under ARP, but I will break it out because it's additional funding through ESSER specific to special education, and that also is for, it's called the extended school year. It's like extended school year, and then there's another few weeks after it. What is it? Supplemental extended school year. I knew there was a name for it. All right, Perkins. Perkins is CTE, FBLA, FCCLA. It's specific to the high school and career technology education. Again, assume 85%. It's an entitlement grant. ESSER, ARP, SR3 specifically. We had CARES money. We had SR2 or CRISA, all of these names for them. That will be done this year. All we'll have left is SR3, and that's what's in this budget. This 6.7 is not the whole allocation. We got $10 million of ESSER. From 22 to 24, we're going to talk about in a little bit. This 6.7 is specific for next year only. Aspire, we're up for our renewal. It's already been 5 years. This is our year 5. I think we've done great. Kristen Boyd has done a great job. We're looking to apply and extend that for another 5 years. So that's in there as well. That's for grades 4th and 5th at Miller. So on top of the $154 million budget for everyday things we have to do, we have $17 million to supplement and reinforce and support what we do. With a lot of money comes a lot of responsibility, and this is a lot. With that, we're staying in the blue. Why? Fund 20, special money, preschool. You guys had the preschool operational plan we submitted. The state said, thank you very much. We'll fund you for that, which is great. History, we implemented mid-year fiscal year 21 with 212 students of general education, free to taxpayers. Because we implemented full-day kindergarten, we could not have had any of the things I'm going to talk about if this board did not approve full-day kindergarten. And now we can extend it and have early education. Fiscal year 22, 373 general education students funded by the state. Next year, 452 funded by the state. General education. The state only will fund a general education student. Local, there's an allocation in our budget that says transfer to preschool expansion. That is the per pupil cost the state determines that must be transferred to support the special education student in that same program. So in one class, we have 15 kids. There may be 12 gen ed, 3 special ed, or 10 and 5, whatever the ratio is. They have to have the same program. It's an inclusion model program. But we locally have to fund the special ed portion. But it's on the blue page because I'm speaking specifically about the grant for the gen ed side. Classrooms and partners. This is this year and next year. We have part of the grant requires us to partner with people in our community. This year we had partners. Next year we have the same partners, but we were able to find space to bring more students in district. So we have to maintain the partners we have, but we're able to educate more in-house with our own staff, hiring and supporting. So we're going up. This year's roughly 450 kids or so. Next year is 550, 100 more kids. The budget highlights for preschool for 2023. Because we're bringing more in-house, we need more staffing. We need the director and supervisor, master teachers. I lifted them all on here. There's a comma after security. Don't know why. Punctuation. I'll fix it. Resources, classroom setup supplies, professional development and training, field trips, substitutes, and bus aids. And facilities. We have the partner locations. There's an allocation there for leasing space. The door's not closed yet. We're looking for more space. We want to even keep going. We have 30 this year, we have 37 next year, but before this school year finishes, maybe another month or so, we may be coming back with, hey, we can do 3 more rooms if we just use the space. So it's exciting. It's a lot of work, but it's exciting. So in preschool, so this particular, which we're going to get to after the budget's all done and you get your binders and have all the fun in the world, tonight there is a resolution to approve the budget that is attached for preschool submission. As it stands today, it may grow, but we have to submit something by Thursday. Okay? Also on this agenda, SR2, CRISA, the one that ends this year, that we started last year. Because it started last year, and it was, $4.7 million, roughly. The spending of last year, now that the audit's done, this year and what we've planned, you have the same purpose. We're spending learning acceleration, general ed, special ed, mental health, technology, summer programs, support services for enrichment, mentor consultations and all. But looking at the allocations, I said, well, we didn't spend as much as we thought this past summer. We didn't spend as much on tuition that first year, meaning 2021. So maybe we'll reallocate and get some other things done. Oh, and that grant that came through from E-Rate, which I told the board about, they picked up the Chromebook, huge Chromebook order. We got a grant from a reimbursement from our technology world. That money was originally an SR2. So because it became another funding source, I now had that extra money. We put more towards COVID custodial supplies. So the budget changes, specifically, we reduced the technology because of the grant, added district placement from 21 because we didn't use all 1.5 million, we used 1.2. Summer program, the surplus from the budget, we didn't use the whole summer program we thought we would do. And we're adding, for the rest of the school year, ABA, which is behaviorists, there's another name for them, but basically behaviorists, as well as the supports for behaviorists, like the RBTs, and that's a contract services. Safety and security, we were supposed to cut technology to technology. Because the Chromebooks were funded, we finished the PA systems in the elementaries. Additional COVID supplies that were originally charged to our local budget. The barriers we bought in the fall, I was able to redistribute into paying it out of this grant. So that's on this budget changes for SR2, special monies. Also on this budget is SR3, we're calling it a resubmission. It's not an amendment, because when the state was reviewing it, they said, we know we gave you $10 million, but we just made up the rules. So you're gonna have to switch a couple things. So basically, the grant calls for different areas. I think we might have listed it, yes. Maintaining health and safety, continuation of learning, mental health. I called it, when Lily and I were, when Miss Moss and I were working on it, I called it the PD column and the summer program column. The state basically said, you have all the right stuff, but they're in the wrong column, because they gave guidance after the fact. They wanted to see more summer programs in one area, and they wanted to see more professional development in another area. So the changes to this budget are professional development moved to accelerated learning, and the after-school programs that weren't accelerated learning are now into learning loss column. It's just a flip. So they asked us to resubmit with that flip, but it requires board approval. All special money, honey. Now, it's time. And the reason I held the binders, and the reason why I didn't upload this yet to board docs, was I really wanted you to kind of try to slowly wrap your head around the different sections. And now we're gonna show you and put it together on how it all is tied. And there are a couple copies for the public as well. You may have to share. I think there's only 3 of them. Maybe 4. Good? Okay. Whoops, wrong button. Sorry. Oh. Okay. You wanted hundos on the cover? There's $1 bills on the cover. Stretching the mighty dollar. All right. So we are going to open your binders, and we are going to go left to right. I'll walk you through it. Believe me, you can get as intimate with these budgets as soon as you can, but I want to just walk you through what you're looking at so that you don't get lost in between, okay? First page is the projected enrollment for 22-23. How do we build our budget? What do our schools look like? What does enrollment look like? What needs do we have? You can study that at your leisure. The very next page, it says tax calculation worksheet. That shows the past 3 years of budgets, the past 3 calendar years, and the impact of our tax levy for the school specifically. The bottom is in red and it says 37960 in parentheses. That means it's a savings, okay? Very next page are the revenue recap we talked about. It's a screenshot on this, but you'll actually have a full page. You can look at it later to understand the new money that over the last 2 years. There is a column for just year to year, so you have the math there, but I'm really just trying to help you understand the 2-year look. Next page is a portrait size. It says budget expense by category. And this is what I chose a select few to highlight today because they were the biggest changes, but that is really so you can see all the categories. Year to year as well as the 2-year comparison. New staff. I'll take a moment to pull this up for you so you can everybody see who's on the audience who doesn't have a copy can see what we're looking at. I think this is it. Nope, new staff request. That's not the right one. Ooh. I don't know what just opened. I don't know what this is. All right. So on the staff request sheet, this is for this year specific. Has it by school. Kind of highlighted it. We're just going to run through it. At the high school, you're looking at an MD teacher. And to support administration, right now there's 1 12-month vice principal and 3 10-month vice principals. With this demand in the summer, we're looking at 2 12 months and 2 10 and 2 12s. That's this recommendation. Fernwood Middle School to have an MD teacher as well as the mental health specialist. Alders mental health specialist. At Miller, these are positions, not people, positions to reallocate for other purposes, as well as an MD teacher, pull-out resource teacher, mental health specialist, as well as an intervention teacher.
So I just want to add with this budget, no one is losing a job.
These are positions, correct. SSC is your Swift Slade Ball Complex. Health and PE teacher, we currently have a part-timer. The demand is there now for a full-timer. The facilitating teacher position, we reallocate it. Preschool disabled is needed. The complex has 3 buildings with 1 principal, 1 10-month vice principal, and we're asking for that 10-monther to become 12-month to help with summer work in the 3 buildings. In that same complex, you have tier 1, 2, and 3, 2 different positions, and repurposing guidance counselor position to a mental health specialist position. I'm not saying it's that person who's going to do it. I'm just saying this is the positions, please, very clear. Davenport to get mental health supports as well as the tier 1 and 2. And in facilities, grounds and maintenance, and 2 more part-time guards in the district. So this budget has these new staff members in it. And you'll see them in their respective lines once we walk you through it, okay? Next page are lease purchase items. After that is a header that says Mid-America. That is our sick time payout. Those who have been here pre-1999 have a bigger limit than those who were post-1999. There's a cap to how much we can pay for sick time. There's a cap column and the post-cap column for a total of $242,000 that's in the budget. The white pages in the front are what we call permanent pages. Things may change in the budget. Maybe a comparative will change, but most of those pages in the front are kind of, background information just for you. Okay.
Ms. Nye, you said something about making the slides available for the board?
For the board and the community care.
Okay, because I think it would help
Oh,
when
yeah,
we're home
as
and
a
going
reference.
through this.
Yep.
To be able to refer
As soon as
back.
I'm done, it'll be right there in board docs. I just wanted to make sure you didn't, there's 76 slides. Shh, I didn't want you to lose. I don't lose
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
So that's the binder piece there. Now flip that page of yellow. It's like a cardstock. And I want to walk you through what it means, what it is you're looking at, what the account numbers mean, what the columns mean. Every account is a series of 2 numbers, 3 numbers, 3 numbers, 3 numbers, 2 numbers, 2 numbers. They all mean something. So that first bold, with a bold description after on page 1, we'll use 10. Fund 10 is just for charter schools. 11 is everything else, and 12 is equipment and projects. We're going to go through what the rest of those numbers mean. The last 2 digits are location codes. So like if you're looking for something Swift specific, find something that says Swift next to it, and that's the location you should look for going forward. The columns, this is going from actually left to right in history. 2017 through 2022 are in a chart-looking column. Let me go back to slide, try to make this bigger for everybody in here. Is original budget, meaning what the board approved originally and that specific year. The adjusted budget, because things happen during the year, because we're striking a budget in March for stuff that's going to happen next year, we may have to transfer. And the expenditures are the actual expenses paid in that specific year. And then below it, in descriptor, is what it is for this year. And it says, it's in like a box at the bottom. So in this specific page, if you look at page 1, it has the 17 through 22 up top, 5-year history. And then below, it says what the budget is. 2.4 million is a box. That's what the budget is. So that's the format of this binder. Every account has an account number and a descriptor, has the years of history, and then what we're actually budgeting for this current 23 year. Now, tuition starts on page 2. That's special education tuition. You'll see offsets by IDEA, offsets by ESSER, charter schools. ACIT enrollment has increased, but their per pupil cost has decreased because, like us, they have additional state aid coming to them. So they're able to charge less to fund their programs. Also in there are transient students through McKinney-Vento and DCP&P. That is anything that says 11-000-100. If it has that beginning, and it's going to be on the slide you're going to get, that beginning means tuition, and it tells you what page it starts on. Anything that says 11-000-211, starting on page 6 if you're following along. It says attendance. It's the staff, it's the secretaries, it's anything related to attendance. Central registration, basically registration as well as truancy. That is where that is. Anything that says 11-000-213 is nurses. You can look at comparatives and all the details at your leisure. I just want to kind of walk you through where things are and what they mean. So 213 is nursing and health services. That's where you're going to find drug testing. Nurse needs Band-Aids and gloves, substitute nurses, any staffing like that. 216 is related services, and that starts on page 12. Related services are speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, test kits for tiering, language tests, protocols, and therapy services. That starts on page 12. All right. We're all kind of there. Then we have page 17, starting with 217, anything that's extraordinary services. This is where you're going to find things out of the ordinary, supplies and services beyond what a typical special education program provides. And I will give an example. We have Chromebooks, right, as a technology in our district. Maybe a 2nd, 3rd grade MD class isn't able to work with them. They may need an actual iPad, something specific to the program that's out of the ordinary that isn't part of our regular programming. And it's usually specific to a student. It's not like, hey, all the MD 2nd grade needs iPads. It's really going to be, Johnny has a hard time manipulating keys. He may need a stylus with an iPad, that sort of thing. Anything that is over $40,000 in total cost to educate one individual child a percent of a percent of a percent is funded by the state. So that's where that stuff is going to be. 217, on page 17. On page 19, you're going to find your guidance, supplies, contracted services, and supports. That's where you archive student records once they graduate. We have college placement software, standardized testing, social emotional staff and resources. We're going to be in the 218, starting on page 19, guidance related things. Page 23 is your child study team stuff. And that's going to be the staff and supports needed, for the special ed department to hold case management, LDs, things that are needed in those teams and supports. Page 28 starts your 221 specific to curriculum. These are where your supervisors for curricular areas will be charged. This is where any supplies they may need, anything they need to support curriculum writing and instruction will be in the 221 account starting on page 28. And facilitating teachers as well. 222, page 29. Page 29 is 222, that's your library. Your audiovisual supports, that's anything, equipment, supplies, books, things needed in the district. Stipends as well for those, you want to have a spring concert during the day. You have to have somebody set up the mics and the amps and all that fun stuff. That's a stipend for AVA, that's what that means. 223 starts page 37. 223 is instructional staffing and development, professional development. Professional development, whether it's turnkeying for new standards over the summer to help create PD for those teachers coming back, for consultants we may have, for sending the teachers out or staff out. These are the offsets I was talking about. SR2, 3, and Title have paid for a significant number of events and staff and things to do for professional development. It's been a huge push initiative. On page 40, you have Superintendent Board of Education Services. This is what they call a central, the administration to run the school. It's going to be anything related to the central office, superintendent's world, as well as Board of Education, legal services, auditor. Anything with HR is actually under this account. And our student accident insurance as well as our board insurances. That starts on page 40. And you will have all these as a reference. On page 46, building administration services. This is building level administration, your principals, your vice principals, things they need in their front office, the copiers, things that to operate the school at the building level. 251, page 55. Business office and anything to run the business side of the world, including our software renewals, including front office, anything to run, what does that say? Outside of building front offices. Oh, copier lease payments. I had to read the first part. Yes, our copier leases throughout the district. Anything outside of the front office by building level, if it's anywhere else in anybody's building, it's a business of the schools. Supplies and resources for our office as well. Page 55. On page 59, district computer technology. This is where we beef up our backbone. We renew any membership subscriptions, like Google platform, anything along those lines, technology-wise, supplies, switches, internet, etc. Okay. Let's go to page 60, facilities and maintenance services. Now in page 60, everything for maintenance of schools, we don't have a facilities director at this moment. We haven't since December, really. So anything for maintaining the schools is in the district-wide account and then allocated to the separate schools as a percentage of square footage. Upon hiring, hopefully the next month or so, when we have interviews and hire, that allocation will be tightened up. Because we don't have a director, it was just fiscally responsible to keep it flat. I did not increase it at all. I don't have the justification to try to increase it, but I know our buildings are only getting older, so I kept it flat. So that's the 261 maintenance supply lines, or maintenance, anything to maintain the school buildings. Specific things will be itemized in the next few months. And upon hiring, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have that person come in here and talk about their plan for next year, because we need to have it. So that's 261 accounts starting on page 60. 262, custodial, building services, cleaning materials needed. We do have a smidge back in the ESSER grants for COVID, post-COVID things for next year. We've reduced it significantly though. Uniforms for each locations. This is where you'll find utility bills because they're considering it custodian of the building, cost to run the building. And that starts on page 69. We did increase about 6 point something, almost 7% in estimated utilities as a whole going into next year. It's been flat for a while. Things are not looking so promising going forward, so we want to make sure we have enough in there. Grounds starts on page 81. Ground supplies and resources, salt, mulch, trimmers. Equipment is actually on the lease purchase page we'll talk about. We have to get, to maintain our grounds, whether it's the inspections that we need, the turf grooming services, anything to maintain our grounds for all of our buildings and ancillary buildings. Security starts on page 82. Specific there is anything for the security coordinator, the guards, supplies, renewals for the stuff I talked about earlier today that are needed for that department. Transportation, we also covered earlier. That's all the staffing, equipment, repairs, supplies, gas, diesel, everything. That starts on page 84. Benefits, anything with a 291 is some sort of employee benefit. So like the true cost of our staff is the salary plus the benefit compensation package. This includes opt-out. This includes tuition reimbursement. It includes the things we spoke about on the other slide. That's all starting on page 94. Fun stuff, educational, instructional for general education. 11-1-1-1. If you have 1-1-1 consecutive in your 4 sections, it's a 1 in the first chunk, a 1 in the second chunk, a 1 in the third chunk, and a 1 in the fourth chunk. That is general education salary. The X's, when you get the slideshow, is basically fill in the blank. It can be any number. It means general education instructional salaries. And that starts on page 96. 11, 190, 100, 6 blank, 610, 640, anything along those lines. Mr. Santilli won us over in his interview by spitting this number out, and I was like, oh, he knows budget. Let's hire him. 11, 190, 100 is instructional supplies and instructional technology, not technology, textbooks, supplies and textbooks. Anything with 190, 100, 6 blank is going to be the curriculum. It's a very long line. It's by department. It's by school. You'll see a lot of pages. That starts on page 101. And as you see the next slide, you don't go to until page 122. So 21, 22 pages of all the instructional by subject matter, by supply versus textbook is broken out on what those instructional areas need. That's a whole 20 pages. But that helps us keep a track of who needs what and their spending by area. So let's jump to 122. 122 covers, I really just should change the slide to be 11-2 anything is going to be special ed programs. And I'll change that before we get, but that starts on page 122. Just like 11-1 was general education, 11-2 is going to be special education. And all their programs, staffing, resource room, I pull out resource, inclusion, staff, supplies, tests, anything that they need in those areas. Preschool disabled is also in there. ERI is also in there. LLD is also in there. I would say 11-2 is supports. I think I just made a false statement. 11-21 could be or something like that. We'll change it, but 11-2 are supports. So 11-2, we have basic skills and bilingual. That's on page 131 and 133. That's not special ed, but that is supporting our students outside of the general education setting. 11-4. 11-401 are clubs, 402 are sports. So in 401, starting on page 137, you're going to see the K-12 clubs, activities, and resources needed. We had an assistant athletic director started this year. It's also in that area because although we have the athletic director for athletics, the primary focus of the assistant is the clubs, activities, unified sports, middle school sports, that sort of thing. So you're going to find that person there. 402 is athletics, middle school and high school athletic programs and resources. That starts on page 143. Then 11-423, starting on page 152. That is Eagle Academy related instruction, staff, and resources. Starting on page 155 is your Fund 12. So 10 was charter, 11 was everyday stuff, Fund 12 is equipment and projects. That's on page 155. Then you have another yellow page. Behind that, by account, subtotaled to the pages prior, where an account may have just said salaries. You go past the yellow page, the corresponding account number, and it tells you what that makes up, what salaries those are made up. Difference between this year's budget and last year's budget, we had a settled agreement. I knew exactly what the salaries were going to be. This year, I don't so much. So instead of having it within the budget, we have all the information on the supplemental pages in the back. So I couldn't just roll over and move everybody up a step because I don't know what the next step is. Okay? And we've had this before if anybody's been here longer than a year. So that is the binder. Do we need to get up and stretch? Okay. I will entertain questions at this time if we're not going to get up and stretch. Okay. That's okay with you, Mrs. Solagi?
That's fine. Go ahead, Tamika.
Thank you so much, Ms. Anaya, for that wonderful presentation. I have a request and a question. So my first request is, you know how you went through and said, maybe it's in here and I missed it, but you know how you said such and such starts on page 155, this account starts on this page. Do you have a cheat sheet that we're at?
You're going to have it attached to board docs as soon as I get back over there. I just didn't want you guys going through 70 slides when I was talking because I wanted to kind of just keep it orderly, but you're going to have it as a reference. Yep.
There's a cheat sheet in the
It's right in there.
slides?
So it's not a
Okay.
cheat sheet, it's on the separate slides, but I can make
And
a
it has the
sheet if
page.
I can do that for next
Just
meeting.
when I'm plucking through it, because I can put a tab.
I got you.
You know
So
what I
I
mean? I can
will,
put a tab inside, you know.
that would be very easy to do and I can email that out to everybody.
Yeah, because all the pages are blue, blue is fine with me. I like that color, but
Okay.
I just want to be able, you know.
Okay, and why is it blue? So let's talk about that for a
Oh,
second.
okay. It's
I didn't
color-coded?
talk about why it's blue.
Okay.
So the front pages are all white. Those are
Yeah.
kind of, I call them the permanent pages, or the things that kind of talk about the levy and talk about things that may or may not change. The blue are the guts.
The guts.
So today, we're gonna ask for a resolution for the total budget of the 154 million, right? We have until the budget hearing, even on the day of the budget hearing, to say the guts just don't look right, or the guts are in a different, philosophy than what the board wants. You can change that. So every time we give you a new presentation or an update, the next set will be a different color, so you can distinguish what is when. On top of the date at the corner, it'll also have date at the corner, but it just helps distinguish which packets flow. Sometimes we've had up to 4 and 5 colors. We're hoping not so much this year, but I understand if we need to go there, we have a new packet every time. So we just pick different color stock that we have.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not.
So that's basically, so I'm
yeah.
gonna just tell the people who are,
That's fine.
why is it blue and not white?
Oh, yeah.
The final one, I think we like to put white, is the final one we keep. But as we evolve,
Oh, it's no problem.
That's all.
Me personally, I don't have
But I'll do the cheat sheet. It's easier
issue
to
with
do.
the color code. That
We
color
can
code
send that
means
out.
nothing to me.
That's no problem. Send that out in email.
Yeah, some
No
people
problem.
need it. I
A
don't
one
need the
pager
colors. Yes.
instead of going through the tabs. Got it.
And so that was my request. And then I had a question about, I know I heard you mention the mental health services. So I guess for me, I'm kind of thinking, which bucket are we taking that out of? Is that a permanent bucket, or is that one of our temporary mini ESSERs and Krista funds? That's what I was, like, is something we can continue to do? Or are we kind of adding that on to like the school counselor to continue that if it's not a permanent situation?
So part of the I can let Ms. Moss add to this afterwards, or Mr. Santilli, but part of the switcheroo was the board's commitment to intervention and mental health. By putting it in the local budget, it is offset by grant funds, but the intent is to be purposeful with it so that if it's part of our base budget right now, and next year if we only get 2 million more, maybe that'll just fund the raises or so, and we can kind of keep that in there as long as it's needed. That was the intent of making it local versus grant. However, nobody's promised a job ever. Just kidding, go ahead. Anyone add to that? The intentions?
The only thing I would add is that it's actually to make sure that we are supporting the work that the school counselors are doing, and to make sure that we are not expecting even more from our school counselors, but actually providing additional supports for them, and in turn, not just our students, but also our staff in general. I think, we certainly see everybody's hitting their tipping point, students and staff alike, and we want to make sure that we have those supports in place. So it's going to be an addition to.
Thank you so much, because that's something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, just making sure that, the traumatic experience that that people had during the pandemic, and just the difference and change in our whole routines in life. I think we'll see that impact years to come. I just want to make sure we have a way to keep those supports in place. So thank you.
I have a question. Madam President?
Mrs. Sullivan's next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Ms. Anaya, I talked to you before the meeting started, and I think you did a really good job of it. I asked you to explain the numbers, the fund numbers, and you did a really great job of that. I think it'll be, especially with all the new board members, they're going to know what that account number is, and then they'll know what school, and you really put it down to the point, which was great. I do have one question, though, about benefits. Do we offer a stipend for any employee that does not use our benefits?
If they are outside of the collective bargaining unit of EHTEA, yes. EHTEA negotiated that out of their last contract.
Oh,
So they no longer are eligible, but PSA and non-union still do qualify for opting out of benefits if they have benefits elsewhere.
okay. And my second question on that is, the old employees are still going through that percentage that kept climbing each year. New employees do not have to do that. Theirs is set, their contribution. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, if you were hired after January 1st, 2021, you are in the employment benefits package, which is Chapter 44. It's a lower premium, like lower out of your check, does have higher deductibles, but it's less costly for the average bearer.
And do the older employees have a chance to take that on?
During open enrollment, and we did
Great.
have some move. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Anaya, wonderful presentation. I know we have a long way to go. We have a lot of questions, and we're just beginning the process. But I just wanted to touch on the capital reserve spending. I wanted to know if you can give me a refresher on capital reserve spending, how that works, bringing up to date on. I know I've been through this before, but I just want to get a little refresher on that, because I think we're looking at $5 million that's going to come off of that towards the budget. My concerns are, what if an unforeseen emergency comes up? Will we have enough money left in the capital reserve to cover emergencies and that type of thing? How much would be left? And what could be the repercussions down the road if we start to deplete the capital reserve at a certain level? I mean, could you more or less give me a refresher on how that works? Thank
Absolutely,
you.
no problem. So the good news is the board used to commit $1 to $2 million a year into that emergency fund if something happens, capital project, roof, asphalt, HVAC. 2 years ago, the board committed and said we have to start chipping away at this with the new funding we're getting. Last year, between new funding and savings from COVID of, not running schools and saving on all that gas, everybody wanted to know where it went. We put 10 million into that bucket. Where are we with spending? HVAC took about 9 million of that, but the board also did their natural 2 million in. So we have done this year some upgrades. I can, for the next meeting, have for you what we've done so far this year to use the reserve. The reserve is separate from our budget process, a bucket of money specific to capital improvements. Last budget and this budget are the first time the board is budgeting intentionally to put money in. Usually it's at the end of the year to say, well, we didn't spend all the money we thought we would. Let's put 2 million towards something in case something goes wrong. But with 70% of our units being over 20 years old, that number was scary. We've done lots of presentations on that. The board was intentional to say we are not going to go to referendum and ask the tax increase. We are going to chip away at this and commit to 10 million that first year, and then 5 million was the intent every year after that, with the concept of having the plans for the HVAC repair, which between this summer and next summer should be that first approval that you guys are going through, and then being intentional with every year after that, still chipping away at it. What happens if we deplete it and don't put that 5 million in? Let's just hope we can open schools if the units go bad. If there's no ventilation, you can't run the school. We have big schools with a lot of students. Contingency plans are in the works. We haven't really solidified them, but it'll be not a good idea. So the fact that the board did make that commitment, we budgeted that commitment and hope to keep that going year to year. So it's part of the base now. Last year was the exception of the 10 million. We're not going to ask that for going forward. 5 million a year should keep us on pace for the what ifs. I think I answered, but I will give a breakdown for the next meeting of
Okay.
what
Yes,
we've
you
done.
did answer quite thoroughly. I appreciate that, and maybe the breakdown would be a good idea for everybody else. Maybe they want to take a look at it. Thanks again.
Anybody else have a question?
In reference to health benefits, insurance, I know you said you have a broker and they look for like the most reasonable health plan. Have you checked with the state health benefits to see if you can save money there?
Yes, it's always on the plan. So like I said, every 6 months, July is our natural renewal. The state renews every January. So twice a year, I'm comparing. This year, right now, if I took a picture of what they cost us right now, we would save about $1 million going into the state health plan. But their renewal numbers come out in the fall. So we're waiting conservatively till the fall to see if they have double-digit increases or if they're able to hold it flat. If they do hold it flat, it may be a consideration to come back to the board to say we may have to go back to state. But we're not going to make that decision today based on an unknown. I'm a very, very scary budgeter.
So at one point
So
you did have the state health
we've been in and
benefits.
out several times.
Okay.
About every 3 to 4 years, we're popping in and out. We're always looking for the best deal for our employees, making sure that we have same or better, or the best opportunities out there. So it's a constant conversation. Yeah. Yep. And then self-funded was new. Usually we just go into another plan, but we actually did something different this time.
Okay,
It saved a lot.
thank you.
No problem.
Oh,
You're fine. So how does this budget impact our student to teacher ratio? Because I see we see some new staff, but then we see different programs. So I was just trying to see how does it impact our student to teacher ratio?
Sure. So this budget, as you saw for general education, regular classrooms, there was a part-time going to full-time and maybe one other, I have to go back to the slide. Student to teacher ratio, I think Dr. Gruccio sent out recently to the board. Except for preschool with all the new students and new staff going 15 to 1, this ratio isn't impacted significantly because of the changes. There is the Miller School, 2 staff reduction for 5th grade, if you saw those. Currently, I'm going to wing these numbers, but you'll get the concept. If there's 498 4th graders, 20 teachers in the 4th grade. Those 498 4th graders are going to go to 5th grade next year. There were 22 teachers there. With the intentions we have of mental health and other supports, those same 20 teachers, or not maybe the same people, but 20 teachers in fourth grade are good enough for 498 kids, we can still do 20 teachers in fifth grade with 498 kids. So the 2 staff reduction was fifth grade had 22, but now they're going to have 20, just like the fourth grade. So now fourth and fifth both have 20 teachers each. So class size isn't changing because those fourth graders already had classes of 24-ish, and they're still going to have classes of 24-ish, if that makes sense. But we're building in so many, so yeah, the personnel is supports. So class size ratio isn't going to be impacted with all the mental health and interventions because those are supports either pushing in or pulling out. So staff to student, I said general education classrooms. Put your mic on if you want to answer that.
So something that we have been discussing with teachers and, through our work is that they want bodies to help support. So a lot of our personnel that you're going to see added, it was more about providing extra supports within the classroom and also supports for our students who need that Tier 3 pull-out intervention, but really supporting what's going on in the classroom and having that extra set of hands in the classroom. But we watch our enrollment numbers. I mean, we've had this conversation weekly. We get an update, and we're looking at class size ratios all the time. So we've been monitoring those numbers, but this is where those supports came in.
Anybody else? Okay, it's my turn. That was one of my concerns, was the class size, and if it's part of your planning, and I'm sure it was, but I just want to make sure. How many children will be preschool age that will not be put into the township program, whether it's in-house or out-of-house?
The wait list this year, I do have Mr. Toland here. I can only project what our current wait list is basically. Right now we only have 30 rooms. So we're adding 7 rooms at 15 kids, which is 105 kids. And right now there's a wait list, 50, about 50. He's losing his voice. Sorry about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now there's a wait list of about 50. They call it our universe, which is third and fourth grade. Excuse me, third, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, which is 2 grade levels. They're saying our universe is 900. Next year we're looking at 555 of the 900. So this is a program that's going to continue to grow, continue to expand, hence the looking for space concept that we're doing, because we only have but so much space here. We do have partners. But as far as who's not going to be served next year, this year we had 450 slots. There's 50 on the wait list. Next year we're going to have 555 slots. But there's 900 kids out there, they're telling us.
But have you heard from them? I mean,
All those on the wait list?
no, you're saying there's supposed to be 900. Have you heard from all the 900?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Some still go to private providers. Some maybe think they just stay home and not ready for school yet, and their parents' opinions or whatever the case is. But if you build it, they will come. Our first year was 212, and we had a wait list of maybe 20 or 30 our first year.
So the 50 that are on the wait list will be addressed. this
Auto enrolled.
coming
I believe we're auto
September.
enrolling them. I'm pretty sure we are.
Which
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. So
Is the, well, yeah, it is. The extra children are addressed in the budget for preschool.
the the 555 students are in the preschool budget. We're asking to be approved tonight. Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Also,
It's through the grant. Yes.
has attention been put on sustainability in the budget? You're saying some things won't be funded through grants next year. If we give back to the taxpayers this year, are we going to ask them, are we going to hit them hard next year is my concern.
It's a great concern, which is why last year with $10 million, we stayed flat. We're slow and steady. We're giving 2 point whatever today, 2.8, whatever the number, 2.3. What is it? 2.28, 2.3 roughly. This year, slow and steady.
Okay.
Slow and steady. We keep getting funded. It's not just to keep spending. We feel like the conversation we have with all the staffing and things we're doing now is we feel with resources, with instruction, with these supports in place, And the administration you guys let us add, we feel like we are in a good place for the size we are today with, you and I had brief conversations, what happens with virtual, what happens, all these hypotheticals, we have to react to them. But as it stands right now, we are comfortable with this balanced budget. Now, do we have more? Yes, Dr. Guccio, they spent the whole Saturday day cutting $3 million. There's more we can do, 100%. But there has to be some kind of a balance here, so we felt this would be, that we're comfortable. I can sleep at night knowing.
Well, I think in the last couple of days, I've seen the excitement that you had in presenting this to us. So I knew it was going to be good stuff. But I guess the sustainability and the class size are my main concerns.
Okay.
And,
So with that, I will say today is the resolution today, just to make sure everybody understands what's happening today. The resolution today is, I'll pull it up on here, it's also attached to your agenda already, is for the total number of the budget as well as the total levy imposed. This budget in total can go down but cannot go up. This levy can go down, but it cannot go up. So this levy being a savings at 1.8 million number, if you think you want to allow us to go back and say, what 3 million did you cut, maybe bring something back, you would have to decide that as a board today. And then you can always reduce it later, but you cannot increase it. You can't increase a levy after today. You can only bring it down.
I understand.
So let's make sure everybody understands tonight is total budget dollars and total levy imposed.
Well, I have to say that in the 30-some years that I've been coming to board meetings, this is the first time that we've ever given
Ever.
back to the taxpayers. And I
Yes.
appreciate your work.
It's my pleasure. It's really, I'm happy to be
And
here
your
at this
staff, not
moment.
just yours,
At this
but- and your
moment.
staff
And my staff,
also.
but at this moment, it's just timing too. The state is finally funding the schools. It's not that any business administrator or administration in the past didn't want to do this. Dr. Grucci and I are very fortunate to be here during these growth years and able to do this as a team, but it's not to dismiss anybody else who's been here who struggled with cuts and cuts and cuts. So,
All right, are we going to do the comment? before?
so any other questions?
No.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, I'm going to go back to my seat. This is the resolution on the agenda. Total general fund of $154 million, of that, the levy, which reflects the savings we spoke about. Special revenue, which is the Fund 20 blue sheets, grant money, as well as debt service, which is paying off debt. There's also resolutions for the preschool submission, the SR2 amendment, which is shifting some tuition and technology monies into other areas, and the SR3 swap out of summer programs and PD. So with that, one more question and then I'll take a seat. Go ahead. Just the number, the blue pages that you're going to go home, write notes on, come back with more questions or whatever the case, we'll have a process. Dr. Riccio put the process out. That can still be worked on all the way through the budget hearing, which is the end of April, about 5 weeks from now. So tonight is just this number. All right.
Before we do the resolution, we're going to take public comments from the public on just the agenda. The board values and welcomes comments and opinions from the residents. This meeting will now be open to the public for comment for 3 minutes per person for on-agenda items only. If your questions pertain to litigation, student personnel, well, no, we're not going there because we're just going to talk about the agenda. As a reminder, this is a public meeting and all comments should be appropriate for the public setting and made in a respectful manner. And if you wish to speak, please come to the podium and state your name and your address.
Sonia Cruz, 207 Egan Avenue. I have just a couple questions. As far as the busing for ACIT students, will that limit, or will that help improve the number of runs that is regularly happening right now?
There are 5 runs to ACIT right now. It will continue to project out to be 5 runs. The difference is if we use our 5 drivers to pick up students, take them to ACIT, I now can't use them for our second tier.
Okay.
In the afternoon, I can't use them for that first tier because I'm going all the way out to ACIT and taking them home. So they take up 2 tiers, morning and afternoon.
Okay.
So because of that, we're gonna have a contractor do it, and we bid it out, so that way
All right.
relieve us from that.
So if one of the ACIT students does a sport for us, would they be able to will that contractor be bringing those kids back to the school district?
Whatever happens now will happen. That's how we're bidding it. So if that's what happens right now, that will be the expectation.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And then will the cuts and the improvements for transportation, will that affect the rumors or the talk amongst the community about changing school times, like having 6th, 7th, and 8th graders come in at the same time? Will that help? Is there going to be a change? So it'll help.
I don't know what you mean by help, but there is
Well, I'm just saying.
plans for change because we are short drivers.
Right, so that's what I mean, it'll help because of that we're short drivers. Okay, all right. And then my other question was the mental health specialist. Can you define that? Is that a licensed clinical person? Like, what is a mental health specialist?
I'm going to have Mr. Santilli speak to that since he oversees social emotional learning.
So right now, within a job description, we'd be looking for either licensed social workers or licensed professional counselors, LPCs, or licensed clinical social workers. That would be either recommended or required in order for them to serve in that role. So it would again be in conjunction with the school counselor role, which is again a clearly defined role. And this is to truly be able to provide therapy and counseling within and during the school day.
So it would definitely be during the school day, it wouldn't be any time after school, it would just be during the school day?
It would be, that is our goal, and it's also part of our approach with RTI. So we would want to identify students that truly have that need, and of course, be servicing students in a, let's say, Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Christy Bird, 608 Central Avenue. Thank you for that presentation. It was very thorough. Well done. I know that's a lot of hard work. Also, thank you, Board of Education. It's a lot of hard work to sacrifice your time and do this every week, so thank you. I have a non-agenda comment, so when that time comes, I'll come back up. But as far as the presentation, thank you for bringing the buses for special ed kids in-house for EHT drivers. So I'm so excited. I was smiling big time because that was an ongoing issue for a long time, and I'm very excited that we are addressing that. So EHT students on EHT buses, great job. I wanted to ask about the $3 million that was cut from the budget so that we're able to give back to the taxpayers the 1.8. I wanted to kind of know what was cut. So because if the number has to be locked in tonight, having an understanding of what was cut kind of makes it easier to accept locking in that figure this evening. So that's a question. And my last comment is, and I could have my numbers wrong, but pages 125 to 130 of your binder references RR, which I believe is reading recovery. In 2022, it looks like $9,043,250.80 has been allocated towards that program. Last year, it was $6,854,523. Again, page 125 to 130. What benchmarks are we looking for to see if that money is being well spent? So I am looking to hopefully the board in the next few months, maybe the curriculum committee can come up with some benchmarks to see if that money is, if kids are coming out of this program, being able to read, or, because that's a lot of money. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you. I will take the answers, I guess, at my seat.
Thank you.
Do you want me to start with the ones I do have, Dr. Grucciano? Do you want me to start with the ones that I do have? The questions, comments, answers? Or do you want to go first? I'm sorry? There's two things I just have to say, and then we can email the rest.
Go ahead.
It's a 3, we're on year 3 of phasing back in special ed runs. It's not 100%. I want to make sure you know that. It's a few every year. We are bringing more back in as we promised, but it's not, you're excited, me thinking it's going to be all of them, and it's not all of them yet. We're getting there. The second piece is RR is resource room, and that's pull out resource and in-class supports, not the reading thing you thought. So that's just 2 points there, and then we can kind of respond to the rest if you want offline.
I'm sorry, what was it?
It's in-class supports and pull-out resource. It's RR is resource room, but pull-out supports and in-class and push-ins for special ed, not reading. Pull-out resource, POR, basically. I can rename them, actually, make it better.
Great, thank you. And then the 3 million.
Okay. All right,
Just want to comment.
go ahead.
Dr. Lucia, can you answer her question about the 3 million cuts, like where that's coming from? Because maybe some people in the board.
If you can activate your mic, Ms. Hyman, you're asking about the allocation for 3 million, I believe, but if you
Yes, I was thinking that maybe some people on the board really don't understand how you were able to cut $3 million, so maybe, could you answer that?
I can explain the process, sure.
Okay.
What we did was just your binder that you went through tonight, all those sections and line items, we went through those sections and line items and looked at class sizes, looked at program needs, looked at different resources that we have in place, and we just went through and we said, maybe this can wait until next year. Certain sections, there were just maybe some supplies that were needed. We really got down to the nitty gritty, looking at different supplies. It was really, really, really fine tuning the requests that the principals put in, that the supervisors put in. Lily and Steve, if you have any more than that, but I mean, it was. Yeah, some of it was a wish list that was presented to us in public, and some of the things that when it got to my desk and my red pen, I said, you know what, maybe this can wait. Can we get by this year without it? And there were some of the examples of cuts. Can you think of anything off the top of your head? I mean, there was some equipment in.
I think the biggest chunk, Dr. Gruccio, if you don't mind, is going to be the mental health and interventions. We did not put in every single school. We were very specific on which ones, because we didn't have the money to put them everywhere. So that was the biggest number that raised a flag to me, dollar-wise.
There were some personnel requests
Yeah.
that we're just gonna have to, and personnel and benefits are a big chunk of the budget, and so we looked at it, we said, you know what, maybe we can wait next year to start this program.
So there were some positions cut, not necessarily, no one lost their job, but certain positions were eliminated. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, no one lost their job, yeah.
I just want to clarify too. I think sometimes when you have the individuals come up here and give presentations, they say, I would like an additional supervisor, I would like an additional person. I think you're saying that goes on the list, and then that might not make it to the final list that's being cut. So it's a position that was never actually developed for the board or board approved yet.
And with positions and comes a program, with program comes resources, and with the position comes benefits. So those things that we really had to drill down, all right, this position we can't do, so what does that entail in the line items? And you had to go through and see where it fell for each school, all right?
That was good, thank you. Yes.
Sorry, just really quick question off of that. With the mental health and the behavioral support positions, do we know what schools they're going to be in? And if because you said that not every school might have that.
Chandra has it, yes.
In the binder, there's a staff list by location.
So, yeah, it is in the binder. page right here. Right, and it's listed by the schools, so you have, the first, on the first page, you'll see Farmwood Middle School mental health specialist. You'll see Alder Middle School, Miller School, the Swift Slavall Complex, and the Davenport Complex.
Okay. So instead of 4.1 for the school budget to the county, it's going to be 5.1, and I need a motion.
Motion.
Second?
Somebody second?
No?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Nope. Okay.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bongiorno?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Yes.
Ms. Hyman?
Yes.
Mr. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Seppi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Solagi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So now it's 5.2 to 5.4.
Let's refresh you.
I need a-
Motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Patrick?
Mrs. Bongiorno? Oh, Patrick, I'm sorry.
Another, we have discussion.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is it my turn? Okay. So for 5.4 for the preschool budget plan submission, it says that it's the plan that's attached is fully funded by the state. But then when we go in there, there's stuff about students with disabilities and that stuff. So is that price included, or is that our local budget that we just talked about? So it's like 1.6 mil.
So the budget to go to the state has to be our entire program, but there's a line there for offset from the local budget for special ed in the inclusive setting, about 1.7 million. And that is what you're approving, the whole presentation, if you will, to the state, saying the board is going to fund this part locally, take the state funding, and create this plan for next year for 555 students.
Okay. All right, roll call.
Mrs. Bongiorno?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Yes.
Ms. Hyman?
Yes.
Mr. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Seppi?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Solagi?
Yes. Okay. Now we'll do another public comment. As a reminder, if it's about litigation, student, or personnel items, please see the superintendent after the meeting. Depending on the nature and the complexity of your questions, the board secretary may ask for your contact information so that someone can get back to you with a response.
Thank you. Christy Bird, 608 Central Avenue. Thank you for correcting my error. Resource room makes me much happier than reading recovery, so I would have been back next week if it was reading recovery, so thank you for correcting me. I had an issue earlier this month that's why I'm here. So I wrote it down so I don't get too scattered and get off topic, as you know I can do. When a parent of a special education student has an IEP meeting or requests services, they are provided with a document called Parental Rights in Special Education by our Child Study Teams, PRIZE. This document spells out parental rights in special education so that parents can advocate for their child and participate in IEP meeting processes. On page 6 of this document, it states, and I quote, "If your school district adopts a policy permitting parents to submit written requests by electronic email, you may submit your request by following the school's email policy. Otherwise, such requests must be written or typed and provided to the school district." So in other words, according to code, it's up to the local Board of Education to accept email requests. I would like to bring your attention to School Board Policy 2460. Section 18 states that, and I quote, The school district will not accept the use of electronic mail from the parents to submit requests to school officials to a school official regarding referral, identification, evaluation, classification, and the provision of a free, appropriate public education. That's our policy. I respectfully request that the board consider allowing the use of email for special education requests. We utilize email for every other aspect of school, and not allowing it in this case causes a burden on parents. We should not have systems in place that make it harder for parents of special education students, especially when code allows otherwise. I was recently told by a child study team member that my letter would not be accepted because it was emailed. My signed letter, attached to an email in PDF form, was rejected because it was not dropped off to the school. In 2022, we can do better. I am asking that the board reconsider Policy 2460, Section 18. Since special ed requests are time sensitive, an email actually benefits the district because it has an automatic timestamp. If a request is received on a weekend, simple language could be added to the policy reflecting that weekend requests would be addressed on the first school day of that same week. We utilize email to advise parents in the district almost on a daily basis. We use Google Forms and Google Meets to sign up for and attend conferences. We utilize the parent portal for information sharing. We are a technologically savvy district, so I am hopeful we can change this policy to reflect the times and remove this obstacle for our parents, like myself, of special education students. Thank you for your time and your hard work.
Mr. Ireland, will you discuss that in your next committee meeting?
Well, myself and Mr. Santilli, I believe, have a meeting tomorrow morning or a phone call to go over the agenda for the next one, and I don't see why it wouldn't be on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else?
Sonia Cruz, 207 Egan Avenue. I'm here for fun stuff, Project Grad. So we look like we are having the date of Friday, June 24th, as the night of the event. Sadly, several of our vendors have gone out of business because of COVID, so we're kind of scrambling to look for other ways to kind of entertain the kids. So we're bringing back the cash machine, so that's one thing that we purchased. I do want to thank everybody for their support during the Thanksgiving raffle. I'm sorry I was out sick and I didn't get a chance to come to a meeting to thank everybody. But I want to make a special notice that the Swift Sleigh Ball Complex, they won first prize and they wrote us back a check for $2,500. So they only accepted half of it and wrote a check out. Because like she said, the president, she knows that she hopes that those students will be able to have a Project Grad in the future. I don't know if there needs to be a discussion with Dr. Gruccio about guests. Right now, we're planning for guests, but we have to wait and see if there's going to be any problems with that. And I am here. I'm sorry it's budget day and I'm asking for money, but I do have my letter requesting the $3,000 that the school board always helps us and donates to us. So do I give this to Ms. Anaya?
Give it to the money lady.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Cruz, for everything you do for the students. Okay.
We need a motion?
We have to go in closed. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask the question, with the policy 2460, I know sometimes we have it's written in the policy that you, want to make sure I'm correct, it's written in the policy that you can't use it for submitting a request for evaluation of services. Okay. I was going to ask, was it a past practice that we didn't, but it's actually written in the policy. And I guess will we get a chance, or what have you, just wanted to revisit the possible time changes for the schools, far as the 6th graders maybe going the same time as the 7th and 8th graders? Was that just like a suggestion, possibility to do with the
It's
budget?
something we're studying right now. Yeah, it
looking
hasn't
into.
been rolled out yet. It's
Okay,
something we're
all right, I just wanted to make sure, because when she mentioned it, I was like, I think that some people may take that as, in the public, that's a definite, but it's not, correct? It's just something we're looking at, possibly.
No, we're looking at it right now, studying it very, very
Very
closely.
closely.
And
Okay.
with everything we do, there is a rollout process.
Gotcha.
Okay, and there's different layers that has to.
Absolutely, okay. And along with the time possible, the study to looking at it, not doing it, but just reviewing it and studying it closely, would that, and this is not anything that's permanent, it's literally just a question that goes along with time changes, would that include a possibility of looking at redistricting the schools along with the possible changes with the time? In a strategic plan?
I was gonna say, this is kind of like the strategic plan, which is, what, June? Is that what we can, May? That we'll discuss in May.
Okay, so it's March 22nd, so I'm just,
April?
yeah, so I'm just, I don't think it's too much, too much out of line. If I was talking about September maybe, but, so I'm just, that was just a thought. I know that comes along with our strategic plan, so I was thinking about that and along, especially with our equity, diversity, and inclusion training that we're, immersing into our schools. That's something I thought about, what comes with time changes and along with our strategic plan. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's something that I was just interested in, and just maybe if that's something that comes up when we get there in May. Okay?
Yep.
All right, well,
Okay,
thank you.
we need a motion to go into executive for 15, 20 minutes. Okay. For attorney-client communication.
Did you need a motion?
We have a motion. You're the motion.
Motion.
Okay. We're good. We're going to executive. All right, thank you for coming tonight.
It's 100.